Wednesday of this past week, I found myself in downtown Dallas for the whole day. I had a meeting with Faith Forward Dallas that started at 10, and then I had a meeting with Dallas Area Interfaith that started at 3. And so I decided just to stay there for the whole time and find a place to work from downtown. And the first meeting took place at Thanksgiving Square, this little chapel at the corner of Hervey and Bryan Street. It's described as an urban oasis, an architectural landmark, an outdoor event space, and a memory-making refuge that serves as the soul and spiritual hub of the community. Take a look inside the chapel. Yeah. What's really beautiful about this place is not just the architecture. That's beautiful. But what's beautiful is its purpose. In this triangle garden, people of Dallas have celebrated unity and diversity with gratitude and goodwill. Listen to this belief statement embedded in their website. To live a life of gratitude is to live a life of virtue. We believe people with a grateful spirit will aspire to live a virtuous life and demonstrate goodwill. They will find happiness and contentment, no matter where they're from or where their journey takes them. By living a virtuous life of gratitude and goodwill, we believe individuals from all backgrounds, cultures, and religions have the power to overcome differences and join together to strengthen communities, heal divisions, and promote compromise. Can you think of a better place for anyone to be when she's writing a sermon to include in our Coexist sermon series? Today, I'll be sharing some of the basic beliefs of Buddhism and how those beliefs and practices are really not that far from the spiritual practices that are encouraged in Christianity. In fact, if you look around this room, you'll find Christians who embrace a form of, in the words of one of them, Christian Buddhism. You'll hear a little about my conversations with them in a bit, but I wanted to put it out there that there's just nothing wrong with living a Christian life that incorporates Buddhist understanding and practices. Yesterday, when I was finishing my walk in the morning, I passed in front of Greenwood Hills Pool over at Waterview and Melrose, where the Live Like Luke team had set up for their inaugural Luke's Dash and Mini Miler. And I stopped to chat with the team. And that's when I learned that Beth Childs has actually named her belief system Methodism. She did know I was going to do this. An intentional blend of Christianity through Methodism, Buddhist understanding and practices, and a whole lot of lively Beth in the mix. There's nothing wrong with incorporating practices of other faiths and religions into our lives. It's one way that we can relate people and groups who appear to be different. What's important, though, is that we seek to understand, not that we seek to mimic. So today, let's focus on Buddhism and seek to understand even just a little. And we'll start with, who is the Buddha and what are the origins of Buddhism? The United Religions Initiative is a consultant to the United Nations and helps with resources and understanding of different religions. And here's how that organization shares the story of Buddhism's origin. About 2,500 years ago, that would be around 400 to 300 BCE, after the return of the Jewish exile, when Ezra and Nehemiah were leading the charge to rebuild the temple and the city of Jerusalem, and in the latter part of this time when Alexander the Great was coming into power. That's the time we're talking about. About 2,500 years ago, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama began to question his sheltered and luxurious life in the palace. This is Siddhartha. He left the palace and saw 4 sights: a sick man, an old man, a dead man, and a monk. I'm not about to tell a joke, okay? These sights are said to have shown him that even a prince cannot escape illness, and suffering and death. And the sight of the monk told Siddhartha to leave his life in the palace, leave his life as a prince, and become a wandering holy man, seeking the answers to questions like, why must people suffer? And what is the cause of suffering? Siddhartha spent many years engaging in those questions and religious practices such as meditating and fasting until he finally understood what he thought were the basic truths of life. And this realization occurred after sitting under a poplar fig tree in Bodh Gaya, India, for many days in deep meditation. And he gained what is known as enlightenment or nirvana and was given the title of Buddha, which means the enlightened one. And since that time, there have been many Buddhist traditions, many understandings of the Buddha and different practices. Much like there are different denominations of Christianity, much like there are different religions all around the world. But what are the beliefs of Buddhism, and how might those beliefs be understood in Christianity? Now, I want to preface this with the fact that Steve and I have had a conversation for a long time that if I have to have a PowerPoint presentation to deliver a sermon and give a message that people will remember, then there's a problem. But in this case, I'm going to make an exception because there are a lot of lists, all right? So what are the beliefs of Buddhism? There are 3 universal truths. Universal truths being that these are realities of life for every single person. The first being impermanence, which they call anicca. Everything changes. Nothing in this world lasts forever. Jesus echoed this. Don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust consume, but store up treasures in heaven. Store up treasures in your heart. Don't be reliant on those clingy things. And the second universal truth is the dukkha, suffering. The acknowledgement that life contains suffering, loss, disappointment, pain. And if nothing is permanent, then a life based on possessing things or controlling things or persons doesn't make you happy. And Jesus names this too. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have come to overcome the world. Jesus provides a way. The Buddha provides a way. The third universal truth being the anatta, about your non-self, that we are not isolated. We're not isolated selves, but we're deeply connected to all of creation. Our self is a collection of characteristics and attributes that connects us to all of creation, humanity, the natural world, animals, and so on. And again, Jesus shares a similar truth in the form of a new commandment, that we're deeply connected and not isolated. That we're so deeply connected, we have this commandment: love one another as I have loved you. Both of these traditions invite us to let go of illusions that control impermanence and ego, and instead live in trust and love. But the beliefs and enlightenment in Buddhism don't stop there with the 3 universal truths. Flowing from those, the Buddha offered 4 noble truths. That life involves suffering. And I think you can say that Christianity agrees with that. Human actions and injustice cause real pain. And so can natural causes like weather or ignorance or someone else's situation. And if life involves suffering, we might want to understand the cause of that suffering. And in Buddhism, the belief is that the cause of suffering is craving and clinging. A core Buddhist belief is that our attachments can enslave us, that the cause of suffering is, in effect, greed of something. And in Christianity, we're encouraged to be more Christ-like, to shed our lives of those things that cause us to turn away from God, to keep our heart open to the Spirit's call, and how we might respond, to think of others over ourselves. Very similar practices there. The third noble truth in Buddhism: there is an end to suffering. Whatever it is that causes suffering, Buddhists believe that suffering can end. Healing and peace are possible in Buddhism and in Christianity. And finally, the way to end suffering is the path of transformation. Buddha taught what is called the middle path. And simply put, the middle way encourages not leading the life of luxury and indulgence, but also not one of too much fasting and hardship. And how is one to follow that middle path? By following the Eightfold Path. I promise this is the last list. The Noble Eightfold Path and the Way to Christ. There are 8 pathways that the Buddha tells us we should consider and we should work towards. For the Buddha, in order to reach enlightenment. For Christians, in order to connect with God. That these are things that we might cling to and need to push away. So the first is a right understanding, seeing the reality truthfully. There is suffering, and these are based on the noble truths. The right intention, choosing compassion over selfishness. The right speech, speaking with honesty, and these days with kindness is an important thing. The right action, living with integrity and hope and helping others. The right livelihood, work that promises justice and does no harm. The right effort, perseverance in doing the good and discouraging unhelpful thoughts. Right mindfulness is number 7, being fully present, and for the Christian, being awake to God's presence. And finally, the right meditation, a focused heart rooted in prayer and meditation. This path is really not foreign to Christians. It resonates with discipleship, with following Jesus in word and deed. Jesus prayed, went off by himself, recharged, and came back to help others, to be a part of the community. It also can't be overlooked that John Wesley summarized many of these points in his 3 simple rules. Do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. All of these pointing to a way of a noble path. I shared that I had spoken with a few people who work to find this mindfulness and presence on a regular basis. The practice itself is meditation. And the goal for many is to connect to the higher purpose. For Christians, that would be to connect with God and to listen for guidance that comes through that can help with our discernment to our problems. It's a practice that helps to get all that stuff we connect with out of our minds so that we can focus on what is good and what is right and what is pure. So that we can open our minds and hearts to God. Because, and I mean this very kindly, our stubborn bodies just seem to hold on to way too much of that stuff. Peg Davis shared a story with me about a visit to the Buddhist Center in downtown Dallas. What she learned in this particular session was this mantra: you are not your body. That was shared by the monk leading the session to emphasize that our physical selves are not the same as our essence. After telling the group that you are not your body, the monk left the room but came back over the audio system to share this. See, I'm still here, but not in person. You can hear me, but can't see my body. They could hear the voice, but the voice was disassociated from the body, and that's what he was striving for them to understand, and he shared it this way. He shared an example of how we can view being together with others, seeking unity and compassion. He asked everyone to close your eyes, hands on your knees, face up. Go ahead and do that now. Close your eyes, and hands on your knees with them facing up. And then imagine all of you, not the body part, but the essence of you, inside of a glass jar. Maybe it's some kind of sand or water. Maybe it's just air, but it's all of you, all that makes up you. And sitting next to you is someone else in a glass jar. On each side of you, maybe there's sand, maybe there's water, maybe there's air. And then imagine if all of the glass jars dissolve. And if all of those jars went away, what are we left with? We're left with interacting essences of each other, which is one of the transformations Buddhism encourages, that we are not just ourselves, we are in unity with all of creation. And if there are no glass jars, imagine the compassion and understanding we might develop for each other, understanding other circumstances and suffering, being able to celebrate with them. It's not just the knowledge, it's the essence. And I think we might even call that love. I'm a fan of Glennon Doyle, an American author and activist who encourages women to overcome society's arbitrary ideas of right and wrong. And she offers ways to break free of the suffering of that. There's that word again. The suffering that comes from these societal norms. In her book, Untamed, which was published in 2020, Doyle shares her story, how she's felt pain and suffering and realizing that she's not alone in all of this. All of us, every one of us, would love to avoid pain, wouldn't we? But it's not practical. And this is why every great spiritual teacher tells us the same story about humanity and pain. Don't deny it. Don't avoid it. We need to evolve, to become. And you are here to become. Like Buddha, who had to leave his life of comfort and experience all of the human suffering before finding enlightenment. Becoming like Moses, who wandered 40 years in the desert before seeing the promised land just a bit. Like Wesley from The Princess Bride, who said, "Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something." But Doyle shares this. Suffering is what happens when we avoid pain and consequently miss our becoming. And what kind of guidance does Doyle give us? Here's what Doyle suggests. Feel it all. First the pain, then the waiting, then the rising. All of our suffering comes when we try to get our resurrection without allowing ourselves to be crucified first. All of our suffering comes when we try to get to our resurrection without allowing ourselves to be crucified first. And then she suggests to be still and know. Glennon tells the story of a day when she received a card with the words, "Be still and know." And here's where Buddhism and Christianity really merge. Both faith traditions agree that meditation and spiritual practice get us out of our heads. And when we get out of our heads and into our hearts, we remind ourselves who we are, what our essence is, who we are becoming, where and to whom we belong. But the big question is how. Glennon had read that verse so many times before, as I'm sure many of you have, but it struck her freshly this time. It didn't say, poll your friends and know, or read books by experts and know, or scour the internet and know. It suggested a different approach to knowing. Just stop. Stop moving, stop talking, stop searching, stop panicking, stop flailing. If you just stop doing, you'll start a new way of knowing. So she decided to practice this. After her kids went to school, she grabbed a towel and sat in the dark closet. And at first, each 10-minute session felt agonizing. I can relate. She admits that she wanted to reach for her phone, check some lists, mentally redecorate her living room, but she continued. And after a few weeks with some successes, she felt herself dropping lower during each closet session, eventually sinking deep enough to find a new level inside that she never knew existed. A place that is underneath, low and deep and quiet and still. No voices, only breath. Knowing that allows ourselves to sink into the quiet points and directs us to a place of peace. There in the deep, when we allow ourselves to get there, we can sense something circulating inside of us. It's the Spirit. It's a knowing. It's a new kind of knowing. And God lives and meets you in that deepness inside you. All we have to do is practice it over and over so that we know with deepness and feeling that God is there to listen, to hear us cry and to hear us scream and then to guide us. So let's practice. As we enter into this time of prayer, let's sing a short repetitive verse that will help us drop deeper, to start to find our place of belonging where God meets us, where God holds us, where God guides us, and where we realize with certainty that we have become and that we belong, that we are here for each other in essence and in love. We'll sing this song a few times. It's a taze song that comes, which is a repeating, meditative, and contemplative verse. Here's how it goes. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. You alone, O Lord, are holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Alleluia. With your peace, you alone, O Lord, are holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Alleluia. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. You alone, O Lord, are holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Alleluia. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. You alone, O Lord, are holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Alleluia. Find your peace.